So the topic of the video today is very simple. Change does not take a lot of time. Transformation does not take a lot of time. The reason I found that out is because in my personal story, I was a homeless person that went from $0 to $3 million after about 3 years of being homeless. And then in 1 year, I went from $0 to $3 million in just 12 months. Now, the reason I stayed homeless for 3 years, and it was very tough for me to get out of the prison that I was in. It was very hard for me to make and achieve all the goals I wanted to achieve, is not because I had resources. It's because I was in a mental prison. I was confined inside of my own mind. And then I realized that that prison that I was confined in, that I was trying so hard for many years to break out from, was a prison of my own creation. By the way, if you're somebody who's not reaching their full potential and you have, for whatever reason, you have goals that you just cannot hit for whatever reason, there is something that is holding you back. It is a mental prison that's probably in your mind. And I have something to share with you. It's probably out of your own creation. Now, what happened in that 4th year is I went from $0 to $3 million and just happened in 12 months. I didn't go from 0 to 5K, 0 to 10K, 0 to 15K. The change was so exponential, was so fundamental that it changed my life at a fundamental level. And so the reason I share this with you, because when I look back at that experience, I found that there's 3 different dimensions that constitute transformation. Some may think it's work hard. Some may think it's the people you know, it's the network, it's your education. It's not any of those. It's change is based on 3 dimensions. And those dimensions, when combined all together, then change becomes instantaneous. And by the way, when I say change, that's an understatement. Transformation is a deeper level than change. Transformation means you never go back being the same person. So if you're listening to this and you're tuning into this and you're like, man, I'm not happy with the results that I find in my life right now and I'm looking to transform my life, well, this training is exactly for you, because in this video, I'm going to give you the principles of transformation, the 3 dimensions that I uncovered of transformation. And if you apply that to your life, guess what's going to happen? Your life will too transform. The question I get asked all the time is what? Was it luck, or is it something that I could apply myself to change my own life? Well, guess what? It wasn't luck. It didn't matter if I was in the insurance industry. I built my success building a life insurance agency. It didn't matter if it was life insurance, if it was real estate, if it was solar, if it was pest control. Change is evergreen. So these principles could be applied anywhere in your life, whether it's business or even outside of business, right? So the first dimension of change, number 1, is identity. And if you're tuning to my content, that you know those 3 dimensions are the first one where I like to begin with is identity. Why? Because identity is something that you probably have never examined. It's not about what you do. It's not about the actions you take. It's not about your behavior. It's about something that runs all of that's underneath all those actions that you have probably never looked at. Why? Because it's not conscious, it is subconscious. It's not visible, it's invisible. And for that reason, a lot of people find it very hard to grasp this concept. So what is identity? Well, identity is simply what you repeat emotionally every single day. What you repeat at an emotional level, at a behavioral level, is what eventually becomes your identity. Now, the issue is what? The issue is that your identity was created back when you were 7, 8 years old. You might think you are who you think you are, but it's not about what you think. It's about your results in your life. So if you open up your bank account right now and you're not happy with what? With the bank account that you see, if you take a look at your annual income, your monthly income, and you're not proud of the number that you are making, you might say, well, you know what? I believe in myself. I believe that I'm fully capable. I believe that I can become a millionaire. But the actual result, the actual number is telling you what? A different type of story. So which one is it? Sometimes we say something verbally, but what happens is that the way that we behave, the way that we conduct ourselves is very different. So identity is not about what you think, it's about your actual results. So if your results are telling a story different from the one that you're telling yourself, then there is what? There is a gap between those two. So how do we bridge the gap? Well, the way that we bridge the gap is the following. You have to understand that identity was created ever since you were 7, 8 years old. Your environment is what shaped your subconscious mind, right? Your subconscious mind is a byproduct of the way that you grew up ever since the age of 7 to 8 years old. So if every time you try to do something and for whatever reason, it just doesn't come with you by ease, right? So for example, if you're somebody who's just not fit and every time you try to get fit, you just find yourself eating a lot of bad food, a lot of fast food, a lot of food that is not advancing your goal. Matter of fact, it is pushing you away from your goal, then chances are you were not subconsciously programmed for it. So how do you fix that? If I look at my results and I tell myself, well, I'm not happy with this, and my identity was programmed and was decided for me ever since I was 8 years old, well, the question becomes, well, who programmed me? Well, the answer is, regardless of who programmed you, it wasn't you. It wasn't you. It was who you were surrounded by. Maybe your parents, maybe your uncles, maybe your family, your environment, your neighborhood. And so what happens is you and I, we go out in life, we take a look at Instagram, right? And we see people making millions of dollars and we say, well, I want to make $1 million too. I want to make $10 million. I see people living financially free. Nobody in my family is financially free, but I'm looking at people and they're all financially free. So if that's the case, then how do I get a piece of the action? I want to travel the world. I want to do this. I want to do that. The problem is when you go out and you try to do all these things, you're proactively trying to achieve a goal, but you're reactively, projecting an old blueprint, an old identity that does not allow for that result to coexist, because your identity is what shapes it all. So to bring the meaning even closer, let's just say that you go out and achieve whatever result that you achieve. Maybe you get lucky, you win the lottery. Well, if you win the lottery within 5 years, chances are you're going to go back to where you happen to be today. Well, how is that possible? By the way, that's an actual stat. People that win the lottery overnight, their bank account goes from zero to millions of dollars, but within a span of some time, 5 years or so, they go back to the exact same broke position. Why? Well, because their bank account changed, but their identity remained the same. So what I want you to think of when you think of identity is I want you to think as the thermostat inside a room. I'm calling you right now, I'm talking to you guys, and I happen to be in Russia. Russia happens to be cold. When I go to Miami, it's pretty hot. So the temperature is different. If you're in a room and that room has air conditioning, then you have the control button to set the temperature. If you set the temperature to 68 degrees, guess what happens? Whenever it gets hot, the AC turns on, sets it back to 68. Whenever it gets too cold, if it goes down to 65, then the heater kicks in and it brings it back all the way to 68. So the thermostat in the room controls your temperature. The same way that mechanism happens with the thermostat in your results in your life is your identity. And if you can control the knob of your identity the same way you control a thermostat inside a room, then you become extremely powerful. That, in my belief, is the most powerful skill that you could ever have, because you could constantly chase goals and not chase them, but actually make them happen with ease. So that being said, identity is the fundamental thing that you should focus on to reconstruct. The question is not, what should I do? So you're asking the wrong question. The question is, who should I become? If you become that person, the result is going to follow. If you're trying to think of what should I do and you're still projecting that old identity, guess what? You're not going to make transformation. You're not going to make any type of changes. Even if you did, they're temporary, they're not permanent. So which one do you want? Do you want a permanent change or do you want a temporary change? Most people want a permanent change. Well, it has to happen fundamentally at the identity level. So that is the first dimension, is for you to reconstruct who you see yourself to be. That's number one. Number two is skill set. Skill set, now that you've reconstructed your identity is going to what? To allow you to take the type of action that you need to take. If you don't have the results that you have right now, very simply, it means that you don't have the identity that you should have. Because if the results are lacking, then there is a gap in the identity. So instead of chasing the result, fix the identity. Again, when you go to a doctor and you tell him, hey doc, I'm sneezing a lot, he's not gonna ask you, well, here's a tissue. If he gave you a tissue, he's only solving that problem for the moment. He's going to be asking you a lot of different questions, because the job of a doctor is for that doctor to identify and diagnose what the source issue is, because that's the area that they should tackle. The reason why a lot of people are stuck is because they're tackling a symptom, not the root cause. So the root cause, when it comes to goal setting, when it comes to accomplishing your goals in terms of business, in terms of any goals that you want to have in life, the root cause is the identity part. Now, once we tackle that, the second part, now I'm taking the right action, the second dimension is skill set. Because what happened to me when I was homeless, I went from Boston and I moved to Chicago. The reason why I moved from Boston to Chicago is because I needed to be around a mentor, a cash flow millionaire. That way I could shadow the man. And when I shadow the man, then suddenly my identity is going to change. I needed to immerse myself in an environment that's going to allow me to think bigger, to dream bigger, and allow me to grow into what I am meant to be. So I took myself, although I didn't have a place to live, I was sleeping in my Toyota Prius. Instead of sleeping in my Toyota Prius in Boston, where I did not have that, I found a mentor that could coach me, and so I moved that Toyota Prius all the way to Chicago. And by the way, if you want to know the story, when I called up my millionaire mentor, at the time he was making about $150,000 in a month. When I called him up, I said, can I shadow you for a week? I only asked for a week. That week turned into about 3 years and a half, right? Like I'm not quite sure what the actual time was, but it turned to a little over 2 years, maybe even 3 years. That's the powerful thing of when you find a person who could build your identity. Now, my identity was built. However, my bank account has not changed. Transformation is what I'm looking for. Transformation did not happen when I achieved the identity part of it. My identity grew. I started to change, but the results did not happen just yet. Why? Well, because the second dimension is skill set. Skill set is what gets you paid. If dimension allows you to take the right type of action, then skill set is what gets you compensated for that action. By the way, I'll give you a very simple example. If I were to give you a canvas, an empty canvas, white canvas, and I gave you a painting brush, and I gave that to an artist, a master artist, and I told them, hey, make a drawing for me. They're gonna take that brush, some colors, and turn that white canvas into a beautiful painting that people would come and admire, and it might even sell for a lot of money. Now, to give the same tools to a complete beginner, and they're not going to produce the same result. Why? It's the same tool, by the way. They all were given the same resources, but they produced a drastically different result. The same thing happens when it comes to a master chef. Give a chef, a master chef, some ingredients, and then give a beginner some ingredients and watch the difference in what they cook. By the way, same thing happens with a carpenter. Give them a hammer, a master one, a master carpenter, give them a hammer, and then give a complete beginner a hammer and watch the results change. So the resource, the tool did not change, but the result was night and day. What was the difference between those two? The difference between those two was simply their skill set. One was a beginner and the second person was a master. So if you want to increase your value in the marketplace and get paid, compensated for what you do, the way to do that is for you to make sure that you're leveling up your skill set. And here's what a lot of people get wrong about skill set. People think that it takes a lot of time. Again, the fundamental belief that change takes a lot of time is a limiting belief in itself. Look, skill set does not take a lot of time. I just went through it. If you want to learn things fast, here's the hack. I'll give it to you. The hack of learning things fast is doing high reps, right? High intensity in a condensed time period. Let me say that again. High intensity in a condensed time period. If you were to say, I'm going to go to the gym and work out. I'm going to go to the gym and work out once a month. What's once a month? That's 12 times a year. If you say, I'm going to go to the gym and work out once a week, that's 52 times in a year. Well, if you take the same 52 times in a year that you're working out, by the way, it's the same energy, it's the same time, it's the same workout. Took that 52 trainings and they spread that over a span of a year. Take the same 52 trainings, the same 52 workouts, the same set of exercises, and do that in 6 months. Let me ask you a question. Which one do you think would see a better result? Probably the person who's 6 months, right? What about if a person comes in and says, you know what, I'm going to do that inside 3 months. And then another person comes in and says, I'm going to do them 52 days back to back to back to back to back. I haven't changed the number. It's the same 52 workouts, but the result that you're going to see physically, the difference that you're going to witness in terms of how you look will be night and day. Well, what happened there? I didn't change the number. What I changed is the intensity and the time period. So if you're somebody who's getting into sales, instead of, you could say, I'm going to dial 300 times this week, or you could say, I'm going to dial 300 times today, or you could say, I'm going to dial 300 times before noon. If you take massive action in a condensed time frame, you're going to get that skill set a lot faster. Why? Because that effort has a compounding effect. You could compound that over years, over months, over weeks, over days, and maybe even hours. Let me give you the best example. The reason why you're tuning into me right now is because I've recently gone viral on my social media presence. What you don't know is 30 days ago, I had zero presence. None whatsoever. Nobody even knew my name, no following, no audience. And today, my account gets over 3.2 million views in a span of 30 days. The month just ended. I took a look at my Instagram, just gave me a notification. Guess how many reels I posted last month? Take a guess, take a wild guess. You know what it is? It was 4 400 reels posted in a month that I personally posted in 1 month. Do you know what 400 reels are? It's more than what most people will do in a decade. In a decade. Think about that for a second. I could have taken those 400 reels, posted them over the span of 10 years, over the span of 1 year, or I could say do that in 30 days. Guess what happens? 3.2 million views. So you want to capture a skill set. The way to capture a skill set is by doing high intensity in a condensed amount of time. That's the biggest hack for you to double up your skill set, because once you do that and you could level up every single time, then guess what happens? Your market value goes up, and then people are willing to pay you. Now, the reason why you don't know, the reason why you and I don't know that is because of our education system. Education, school taught us knowledge. It didn't teach us what? Execution. Skills are execution. The only way for you to apply that knowledge is for you to take action, right? So school taught us knowledge, taught us information, but the real money, the real value is in skill set. So if you know more than what you do, then guess what happens? If you personally know more than what you do, that means you're putting your attention on the wrong category. That means you are consuming way more information than you're able to put into action, and that actually holds you back from optimizing your results. So the second dimension is what? That's skill set. The first one, as we discussed, is identity reconstruction. Number 2 is skill set, and then number 3, and what I love the most, is strategy. And this dimension is not about doing more. Skill set was about taking action. Strategy is not about taking more action. It's actually about taking less action, but getting more results, getting more output for the piece of action that you're putting out. Let me give you the best example here. If I make a presentation, let's just say that I'm a sales trainer and I go out and I have an appointment and I'm going to sell this policy, I'm going to sell this deal, I'm going to sell this house, whatever it is that you're selling. If I go there and I sell the person, I meet with the person, I present to them my product, let's just say that they never bought, right? So I just spent an hour of my time presenting to a person who has never compensated me for that hour because they never bought. Now, if I took that same presentation and I had one person watch me, then guess what happens? Not only did I do the presentation, but I've also taught a person. Now, if I had 100 people watching, I've just taught 100 people. If I sold the deal, then there's 100 people, maybe even 1,000 people at this point now learning how to do the exact same thing. I didn't take more time. It took me 1 hour, but the value that was created by person A versus person B versus person C is day and night in terms of the difference. Person A just did this one-on-one. It was a one-on-one activity. Person B put 10 people to watch him. Person C had 100 people watch them. Once I sell, the first person made a commission, the second person taught 10 people, the third person potentially duplicated themselves into 100 people. Now 100 people go out and sell and they're all associated to your company, then guess what happens? Now you're making a lot more money for that same activity. So the question here becomes, how do I do something one time and have the result get me paid multiple times over and over and over and over and over? Strategy is how billionaires think. The person who's strategic in their approach does not think of what should I do today. Maybe an entrepreneur or business owner thinks about what am I going to do today. A strategic thinker thinks about how is today going to set me up for tomorrow. Think of a chess player. A beginner chess player, somebody who's a beginner, just plays moves. A master doesn't play a move to play the move. He plays a move to set up the next 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7, 8 moves ahead. That's the difference between someone who's playing at the billionaire club versus a person who's just starting out in the world of business. So strategy comes in when you want to multiply your effort and compound your effort without having to spend more time. I gave an example not too long ago. What do you value more, time or money? Most people say, well, I value time a lot more than money. And by the way, you can't tell me that I don't value time because I make $100,000 a year. I actually make $250,000 a year. I actually make $500,000 a year. And my answer is, you still don't value time. See, you've been lied to. You're under the illusion that you value time. How are you working 80 hours a week, 100 hours a week, and you're only making $500,000 a year? How? It doesn't make any sense. I made a 7-figure income not putting half as much time as that. How is that possible? There are people who are making a lot more than me. There are people who are making over $1 million a month, and they're not putting as much time as I am doing right now. What does that tell you? That tells you haven't valued your time properly. You think that you did, but in actuality, that's just comfort disguised as I'm a person who values time. You do not value time. That's the reason why your results are stagnant, because you could be making a lot more. You just might be under the chain of comfort. So strategy is what allows you to multiply your wealth, right? So strategy gets you from rich to wealthy. Identity and skill set can produce riches. Strategies where you really get to take things to the next level. Because one of the first components, one of the best components, one of the branches of strategy is leverage. That's the area that I focus on. 4 different dimensions of leverage. What are they? Number 1 is money, capital. If you borrow money from people to invest in your company, that's money that you didn't have to come up with, but you have the ability to put that into work and make money back to your pocket based on somebody else's money. It's called other people's money, right? If you're in real estate, you understand how that works. You attract investors to acquire an asset. You have a piece of it because you acquired it, but using somebody else's resources. The mindset that a lot of people fall into wrongfully, it's a wrong mindset, is I don't have the money, therefore I can't start the business. I want to start the business, but I don't have the capital. Guess what? You never needed the capital. What? Yeah, you never needed the capital. What you needed is to find the right deal. What you needed is to find the right opportunity, and the capital will find you. See, when I started my first company in Boston, it was a Dubai franchise. So I traveled from Boston to Dubai, toured the company for the whole week. I spent a whole week touring the city of Dubai to see their operations. I had zero money. I was a college student. But what I did is I had the business idea, and I put the time for me to see and develop the idea to see how it would look like if we were to replicate the same concept in the United States. That effort attracted investors, and so people invested in the idea, and we raised about $150,000 to $200,000 in that first venture. Why? Well, because there were people that were interested in the potential of that idea, right? So resources is not what you need. Resourcefulness is what you want. So the first mode, or the first type of leverage, is called capital. Had it not been for capital, I would not have been able to start my first business. The difference between me and you is the fact that I didn't let that limit me, but you might. And so this is the reason why I'm telling you that you do not need that. Now, number 1 is capital. Number 2, people. People make companies. When you have more people helping you, guess what happens? Now, your bank account is not tied to your 24 hours. The reason I love that is because in insurance, it allows me to scale my agency. It allows me to scale my business. So I could go and sell 1-to-1, and I would make a fat commission. We get handsomely paid, thankfully, in the insurance space. But when I go out and I build a team, then guess what happens? Then my bank account is tied to the efforts of 10 people, 100 people, 1,000 people. So now you and I have the same 24 hours, but in my 24 hours, my business has 240, maybe has 2,400 hours. And you will never be able to compete with my bank account. Why? Because my bank account is not limited to my 24 hours. It actually has 2,400 hours in your 24 hours. Why? Because I have 100 people on my sales team. That's the beautiful thing about scale and leverage. So you want to do that, bring more people to your business. It might not apply to all businesses, but that's one of the reasons why I love the insurance space, because it allows me to scale my income by helping other people. Number 3, it's code. What's code? Well, it's software. You and I, you're probably consuming this information right now on YouTube, on Instagram, on TikTok, wherever it may be, using a software-based company. Well, that software-based company is a what? Is a form of leverage, because you create that software one time and then you could have millions of users use it. That's why tech is a what? Is where a lot of billionaires build their wealth, because it operates on that type of leverage. Number 4, and finally, is media. Media is what took me from 0 to 3 million in 12 months. Why? Because what I did differently that year is I partnered up with people that had an online presence. They had what's called a personal brand, a brand that had the reach that I needed to get to my target customer. Does that make sense? So those people would allow, instead of recruiting people one-on-one, which is what I did For 3 years in a row, I recruited over 250 people one-on-one, but it took me 3 years for me to accomplish that. And then when I partner up with the right people that had the right type of business profile and the right type of social media presence, the moment I did that, I went from 0 to 700 agents overnight. That was at the start of 2022. By the end of 2022, we've built a $3 million business, just like that. Why? Because of media. The reason why I'm building a personal brand right now and you're seeing me on YouTube is because I am leveraging media. So you don't need all four for you to make a seven-figure income. Usually the people that apply all four, they're in the billion-dollar club. So you want to use as many as you want. The questions that I want you to ask at the end of this video is, number one, who do I have to become? Not what should I do next, but who do I have to become? Put the attention and the focus on the source of the problem, not the symptom. Number two is, what does that new identity of me require in terms of skill set to have? Again, what does that new identity of myself that is going to attain that goal, what does that identity have in terms of skill set? That's what I need to focus on. That's the skill set that I need to develop. And then number three, which one of the four leverages am I not applying right now in my life? Which one of the four leverages that I have right now am I not applying to my business? Because the moment you apply just one of them, you will notice a night and day difference in your business. That being said, if you want to learn more and if you want to tune in to this type of content and actually interact and see how you can apply these concepts to you, what I've done is something extremely valuable for the listener. What you have to do is click the link below, join my school community. In that community, there's a free course where I walk you through a workbook that contains 12 questions, 6 on the identity side, 3 on the skill set side, and then 3 on the strategy side. And if you ask those questions of yourself and you answer them seriously and honestly, and I'm talking about taking an hour or 2 or 3 hours maybe of self-reflection, and if you answer those questions at the end of the 12 questions, I promise it will give you a breakthrough. Meaning what? Meaning you're going to realize something that you didn't even know about yourself, something that existed within you that you never took a look at. How scary is that? For me to know that something exists within me and I never even become aware of it. So take that workbook, take that free course, answer those 12 questions, and by the end of that, I want you to reach out to me, drop that workbook in the community below. That way you and I get to process this and I can help guide you in the next steps. It's completely free. Click the link below, join the school community, join the rebuild and go through that course. It takes only 3 hours for you to complete the entire thing and it will change your life. So don't sleep on that. That being said, subscribe and share this content. Thank you guys for tuning in. Until next time.